Hello everyone, and welcome to the Solo Gamers Club. My name is Keith, and tonight we're going to be playing Eldritch Horror. For tonight's game, we're going to be opposing Hypnos, the Lord of Sleep. In this solitaire playthrough, I'll be controlling 4 random characters. I've prepared a short sequence to explain the background for our characters and their battle against Hypnos. So let's take a look at that.
I knew something was wrong the moment I touched the stone. It was just a fragment, smooth, cold, carved with symbols that made my eyes ache. But the second my fingers brushed it, the world tilted. The room blurred. And for a heartbeat, I wasn't standing in that dusty back room of the museum. I was somewhere else. Somewhere quiet. Too quiet. When I came back to myself, the others were staring. Leo had his hand on his machete, knuckles white. Gloria was already flipping through her tome, muttering about oniric signatures and temporal bleed. Tommy just looked at me with that steady, worried expression he gets when he knows a fight's coming and he can't shoot it. I wanted to tell them I was fine, but the truth was still ringing in my skull like a struck bell. "He's waking," I whispered. "Hypnos, he's coming back." The air in the room changed, like the moment before a storm breaks. Gloria found the inscription first, etched into the underside of the stone fragment, hidden unless it was tilted just right. It read, "When the walls between the waking world and the Dreamlands thin, the sleeper will walk again." Leo swore under his breath. Tommy crossed himself. And me? I felt that familiar tug behind my eyes, the soft, coaxing pull of a voice I've tried so hard to ignore. I clenched my fists until my nails broke the skin of my palms. Not here. Not now. Not with them watching. "We have to move," I said. "If Hypnos is returning, the world won't stay solid for long. Dreams will bleed through. People will vanish in their sleep. And once he's strong enough..." I didn't finish. I didn't have to. Leo nodded grimly. Gloria snapped her book shut. Tommy checked his rifle, even though we all knew bullets wouldn't matter much where we were going. As for me, I took one last look at the fragment, the proof we never wanted, and felt the weight of it settle into my bones. Hypnos was coming, and he remembered me. "Let's go," I said, "before he decides to greet us in our dreams."
Our lead investigator is Daisy Walker, the librarian. She's going to begin the game with the Old Journal unique asset and a spell called Arcane Insight. She specializes in lore, influence, and willpower. Her special action allows her, when she's on a city space, to test observation. And if she can pass, she'll gain a tome asset from the reserve or one random tome from the deck. Daisy is going to begin the game in Istanbul, Turkey. Next, we have Leo Anderson, the expedition leader. Leo specializes in observation, strength, and willpower, and he's going to begin the game with an ally, some hired muscle, giving him a bonus to strength and allowing him a reroll during a strength test. His special ability allows him to test influence, and if he passes, he can gain an ally asset of his choice from the reserve or the discard pile. His passive special action is when he's on a wilderness space, investigators on his space will roll 1 additional die when resolving tests. Leo Anderson will begin the game in Buenos Aires. Then we have the author, Gloria Goldberg. She is equally good at lore, influence, observation, and willpower, but she struggles with a lack of strength. She's going to begin the game with a spell, a Find Gate spell, and a Mythos Codex, unique asset. Gloria will begin the game in Arkham. And finally, we have the rookie cop, Tommy Muldoon. Tommy is equally good at influence, observation, and strength, and he's going to begin the game with an improvement to his willpower, boosting that to 3 as well. He'll begin the game with a carbine rifle, giving him a +5 bonus to strength during combat encounters. Tommy is going to begin the game in Anchorage, Alaska in Space 1. Now we're going to be opposing Hypnos, the Lord of Sleep. We'll begin the game with a doom track of 12. And his cultists have a very interesting special ability. It says here, if we can pass the willpower test, we'll free the dreamer from eternal slumber, and we would defeat the monster outright. If we have to go to a strength test, and we pass that, we will gain a madness condition. So we want to defeat those cultists before we get to the strength test. And that means that our characters will have to have high levels of willpower. Hypnos' special abilities include when an investigator performs a rest action, he cannot recover both health and sanity. Normally during a rest action you can recover 1 point of health and 1 point of sanity, but against Hypnos we will have to decide which we are going to recover. In order to win, we're going to have to solve 3 mysteries. During reckoning effects, Hypnos will force each investigator to move 1 space towards the nearest space on the Dreamlands sideboard, unless he spends a sanity. Our prelude card for the game is entitled Temptation. Shadowed voices whisper gentle words into your ears. Promises of peace and happiness. You smile, remembering the places of your childhood, and a gentle breeze caresses your face. Or does it? Was there even a breeze to begin with? As if sensing an opening, the voices egg you on. A sweet scent fills the air. Someone is baking. Your mother, perhaps. Your grandmother? You cannot remember. Everything is so hazy and surreal. Go on, the voices say. They are waiting. Eat the pie. You hesitate. You do not remember being hungry, but it would be rude to decline such hospitality. After resolving setup, the lead investigator may gain a corruption condition to retreat doom by 1. If the lead investigator gains the condition, another investigator may gain a corruption condition to gain 2 talent conditions. If that investigator gains a condition, a third investigator may gain a corruption condition to improve 3 skills of his choice. Well, looking at those options, I think we are going to pass on those. Our lead investigator is not going to gain a corruption condition. The doom track is currently at 12, and that's high enough. We don't need to retreat that any further, so we will pass on these options. Now, as a part of the setup of the Dreamlands board, we have spawned dream portals. Those are located at the pyramids, the Amazon, and at Arkham. Those locations were spawned by drawing the top tokens from the gate stack. Subsequently, the rules told us to replace those gates face up in the order that they were drawn. Also a part of the Dreamlands rules is if a gate would spawn on a space containing a dream portal, we would spawn that gate on the space that corresponds to that dream portal instead. So in this case, during setup, the first gate token that we drew was the pyramids. So instead of placing the open gate in the pyramids, we place it in the underworld. So we place the open gate for the pyramids in its corresponding location on the Dreamlands board, in this case the underworld. And it's being guarded by a crazed mob, which has a reckoning effect. And that reckoning effect says we're going to roll a die On a 1 or 2, we are going to advance the doom by 1. Also, as part of setup, we have placed the dream portal in the corresponding location with the top card of that dream portal deck. In this case, it is in Unknown Kadath. And that dream portal will function very similarly to the expedition deck. Our starting clues appear in the Heart of Africa and one on the Dreamlands board at Dilath Lean. And our first mystery is entitled Dreamwalker. All around the world, captives of Hypnos lie in eternal slumber, trapped by dreams they perceive as real, all the while being drained of their vitality to feed the insatiable hunger of the Lord of Sleep. As an encounter, an investigator on the main board on a city space containing a clue may spend 2 sanity to enter the dreams of the trapped. If he spends the sanity, he draws and resolves a Dreamwalker special encounter. At the end of the Mythos phase, if there are clues on this card equal to half the number of investigators, solve the mystery. So to solve this first mystery, we're going to be looking for city locations on the main game board that have clue tokens on them. We'll travel to those locations, spending 2 sanity, and we'll be resolving Dreamwalker special encounters. And we're going to need to have a total of 2 clues on this card in order to solve the first mystery. At present, none of the cities on the main game board have any clue tokens on them, so we will need to get some clues into city locations. So let's take a look at a little bit of the strategy that we should be using to help us to defeat Hypnos. We know that his cultists, in order for us to defeat them, the easy method is if we can have high willpower. And we'll be able to defeat them outright without having to actually fight them using strength. So anything that can help us to improve willpower would be a definite benefit for us. And obviously places like Rome would be a great place to go to improve willpower. The game begins with a crazed mob in the underworld. And their first condition is going to be to test influence -1 with a horror rating of 2. It says here if we can pass that influence test, we're going to defeat the monster. So if we can pass that influence test, we'd be able to defeat them without having to go to a strength test. So we need to get somebody over to the underworld to deal with that. The closest individual we have is Daisy Walker. She's in Istanbul. She could take a train to the pyramids and then use the local path to get to the underworld. So that is a possibility for us. Now, incidentally, we have another way that we can enter into the Dreamlands. We can either use these local paths from the dream portals, or when an investigator is not on the Dreamlands board and performs a rest action, he can also spend a clue or test willpower -1. If he passes or spends the clue, he can move to the Enchanted Wood. So it's another way for us to get onto that board. I think the best thing we can do is to have Daisy Walker move from Istanbul to the pyramids. And in the meantime, I will start building up her focus tokens in an attempt to take out that crazed mob in the underworld. Next, I think we'll move Gloria Goldberg to London. That's a good place to spawn clues. We need clues on city locations in order for us to solve our first mystery. For Leo Anderson, he's in Buenos Aires, and he would be within a couple of spaces of the expedition in Antarctica. That might be a good spot for us to move him to. And finally, we have Tommy Muldoon. He's up in Anchorage, Alaska. And we'll have to see, I think, how the other portions of the turn go, and then we can decide what to do with Tommy. All right, we're going to begin with our lead investigator. That's Daisy Walker. She's in Istanbul. She is going to take the rail line and do a travel action to the pyramids. Once there, she is going to gain a focus token. That'll be her second action. Now, we have a local connection to the underworld, and we can use that local path at any time to move to that location for free, and that's what she's going to do. So she's going to use the local path to get to the underworld, and she's going to confront that crazed mob during the encounter phase. Next is Leo Anderson, and he is going to do a prepare action. And we're going to have him prepare for sea travel. His next action will be a travel action. He's going to move into Sea Space 12, spending the travel token and moving himself to Antarctica, where he is going to encounter that expedition token. Next is Gloria Goldberg. She's in Arkham. And I think what we'll have her do is she's going to do a travel action and move to London, where we have a good chance on spawning clue tokens. And I think for her second action, she's going to focus. And finally, Tommy Muldoon in Anchorage, Alaska. I'm going to begin by having him prepare for travel, and he's going to gain a ship token. His second action is going to be a move, and we'll have him move to Space 19 in eastern Siberia. So he's going to travel to Space 19. He'll spend his travel ticket and continue moving to Tokyo. And I moved him there. It's a space where we can more commonly defeat monsters, and in the event that Daisy Walker fails in her attempt in the underworld, we might be able to use Tommy Muldoon in Tokyo to get rid of that crazed mob and the risk of them moving the doom track down. All right, Daisy Walker is in the underworld, and she's forced to encounter this monster that's there. Got a crazed mob. So she's going to have to pass a influence -1 with a horror level of 2. And if she can do that, it says on the token, we can defeat that monster automatically. Now she has an influence of 3. The test is a -1, so we'll be getting 2 dice for the test. And let's see if she can pass this. She does have a focus. And she's done it. She's got 2 successes, and she's defeated the crazed mob, and that is awesome. We'll get rid of that. And now that no monsters remain in her space, she can perform a bonus action in the underworld. So she could either take a location action or a token action. And I think she'll attempt to close the gate in the pyramids. And she draws the gate card, the Dreamlands. And Dilethline, a suspicious-looking thug in a dark robe, offers you his help. However, he warns you he's a fugitive being hunted by the prince's agents and will require your protection. And we're going to need to test strength -2. Well, unfortunately, Daisy does not do well in strength tests. She has a 1. So she's going to only get her minimum 1 die for the test. Let's see what happens. She rolls a 4, and that is unsuccessful. All right. Well, I think we will save our focus token and move on to the fail condition. The fail condition reads, the eyes of Dilethline capture you and sell you as a slave. Try to persuade other slaves to fight back. Test influence. Well, Daisy has an influence of 3, so we will be rolling 3 dice for the test. All right. She has 1 focus that she can use. Here's the roll. And she has no successes. All right, I think she will use the focus token, and that'll give her 1 reroll attempt. So 1 in 3 chance. Okay, here is the roll. She rolls a 2. That's a failure. So we'll have to read the fail condition. And it says, if you fail, you are banished as a punishment. Gain a lost in time and space condition. Uh-oh. So she is going to gain a lost in time and space condition. That's a restriction. It says remove your investigator token from the game board. You are unaffected by other game effects and cannot move or perform actions. Instead of resolving an encounter, flip the card. Okay, so we're going to remove Daisy from the board. All right, now we move on to Leo Anderson. He's in Antarctica. He can either take a location encounter or a token encounter, and he's going to take the token encounter with the expedition. And that reads, you hear a faint sound echoing up from the caves that lead down into the darkness. You listen carefully to discern the sound's origin. All right, we're going to have to do an observation test. Leo has an observation of 3. Okay, here is his observation test. And he's got 2 successes. So we'll read the pass condition. It says, you identify the sound of Shoggoths. You escape, but can barely keep yourself conscious, waiting for a rescue. And we have to test willpower. Well, Leo has a willpower of 3, so we will roll 3 dice for this test. And he has failed. And it says, if you fail, pass out and hear the sounds of Shoggoths everywhere you go. Gain hallucination condition. And so unfortunately, Leo is going to gain the hallucination condition. That says when you perform a rest action, you may roll 1 die. On a 5 or 6, you can discard the card. During reckoning, we're going to have to test willpower. And if we fail, we will flip the card. Okay. Next is Gloria Goldberg's encounter, and she's going to take a London encounter. And the encounter reads, inside the Herefordshire Asylum, a patient asks you if you've seen the yellow sign. You listen to a story of the King in Yellow. Test observation. All right, Gloria has an observation of 3. And here's her observation test. And she has failed. She's going to use her focus token. And we'll have her re-roll one of those. And she's failed again, so we'll have to read the fail condition. If you fail, his gibberish imprints itself onto your subconscious. Gain a hallucination condition. Oh no. So unfortunately, she's going to gain the hallucination condition as well. Not good. And finally, we have Tommy Muldoon. He's currently in Tokyo. His choices would be to take a Tokyo encounter or a general city encounter. And I think considering there are no monsters on the board, which is its primary function, I think we will take a general city encounter. And that reads, you step forward to protect an innocent bystander from a gang of thugs. Test strength -1. All right, Tommy Muldoon has a strength of 3. So we will have him make a strength test using 2 dice. We'll see how he does. He does have a carbine, but that's only for combat, not for normal strength tests. Here's his test. And he has failed. It says if you fail, the gang delivers a beating to you as well. Lose a health and gain an internal injury condition. Oh no. So Tommy will be reduced to 6 health, and he's going to gain an internal injury. So we'll give Tommy an internal injury condition. And that says when you perform a rest action, you may roll a die. 5 or 6, you can discard the card. On a reckoning, he'll be testing strength, and if he fails, he'll flip the card. So we haven't done too well with passing our tests. in this first turn, even though in most cases we've had 3 dice. All right, our first player is Daisy Walker, but she is lost in space and time, so she needs to pass that first player marker to the next player, and she's going to give that to Leo Anderson, so he is going to be resolving the Mythos card. Now, based upon Hypnos' schedule for the Mythos cards, we have a 2 in 3 chance of drawing a yellow card, which is going to have a reckoning effect. But we've drawn a blue, and we'll begin by resolving those icons at the top. First is to spawn clues. We're going to be spawning 2 clues according to our 4-player schedule. And our clues are revealed to be in Tokyo and in Space 19. Okay, those are very near Tommy Muldoon, so we'll place those in those locations. Next, we're instructed to place a rumor token in San Francisco, so we will do that. And the text at the top of the card reads, Father John W. Sullivan tells you that your dependency on worldly goods is a burden on your soul, and if you must embrace the simplicity of St. Francis. And this is an ongoing mission. It says Mission Dolores. As an encounter, an investigator on San Francisco may pay homage to St. Francis. He may spend clues equal to the number of investigators to solve the rumor. When there are no Eldritch tokens on this card, for each item or trinket possession an investigator has, he loses a sanity unless he discards that possession. Then solve the rumor. During reckoning effects, each investigator will gain a madness condition unless he discards an item or trinket. Discard 1 Eldritch token from the card. So we're going to be placing 3 Eldritch tokens on this card. And I will place that out on the main game board with 3 Eldritch tokens. And so that is going to complete our first round. So we know that the next 2 cards in the Mythos deck are going to be yellow cards, and those will have reckoning effects associated with them. So we'll have to try to deal with these hallucination cards and internal injury cards that we have for our investigators. Our new round will begin with the first player, which in this case is Leo Anderson. He's in Antarctica. He's going to start out by doing a rest action. So we're going to have him attempt to get rid of that hallucinations card. He's at full strength in health and sanity, so we'll have him roll a die, and on a 5 or 6 he can get rid of that card. This will be his first action. He's rolled a 6, so we can discard the hallucinations card, which is awesome. Now I forgot to move the expedition. It should have been moved to Tunguska. So we're going to move that expedition to Tunguska. That's the next card up in the deck. And now we'll see what Leo is going to do. I think Leo is going to make his way to Sydney, Australia. So we'll have him do a travel action. And he will travel to Sydney. Next up is Gloria Goldberg. She is in London. We're going to keep her there. And I think she's going to start by doing a rest action. And we will have her attempt to get rid of this hallucinations condition. Now she has 4 health and she's got 8 sanity. So she's full with that. But we're going to attempt to see if we can heal her from that hallucinations condition. She needs a 5 or 6. Here's the roll. She's rolled a 5, and we've gotten lucky, and we've gotten rid of the hallucination. That is awesome. Her second action will be to gain a focus. Next up is Tommy Muldoon. He's currently in Tokyo. We're going to need a total of 4 clues in order to solve that ongoing rumor. It's not the most severe, but it will have an impact on us, so we probably should attempt to do that. We have 2 clues in his proximity, so I think I'll have him stay in Tokyo. And he's going to do a rest action. We'll see if he can get rid of this internal injury that he's carrying. He's going to heal a health, which will move him back up to 7. And then he'll see if he can get rid of this internal injury. We're going to need a 5 or 6 for him to get rid of it. So we'll make the roll and see what happens. Okay, here is his roll. And he's rolled a 2, so he's unsuccessful, and he will keep that internal injury for the moment. His second action will be a focus action. We'll give him a focus token. Our next player would be Daisy Walker, but she is lost in time and space. And she has that restriction on her, and she can only deal with encounters. And instead of resolving an encounter, she's going to flip that card. So we'll do that during the encounter phase. Leo Anderson will resolve his encounter, and he's going to take a Sydney encounter. And his encounter reads, Don Bradman perfects your cricket game, improves strength. All right, that's going to move Leo Anderson from a strength of 3 up to 4. So we'll give him a +1 improvement to strength. Then it says you try to get the press to give the athlete some privacy. Test influence -1. Well, his influence is 2, so he'll only be getting 1 die for this test. And we'll have him roll. He rolls a 3, so that's a failure. I think we'll have... Well, he has no focus. So it is a fail condition, and that says, if you fail, you punch a reporter, gain a detained condition. Wow. So Leo is going to gain a detained condition. It's a restriction. It says you cannot move or perform actions other than the action on this card. Instead of resolving an encounter, flip this card. And the only action we can take is a local action where we can test influence to pass and discard the card. Next up is Gloria Goldberg. She's in London, and she's going to attempt another London encounter. And the encounter reads, you are warned not to open the box of prophecies left behind by Joanna Southcott, but knowledge of the future is a tempting prize. You may gain a curse condition to gain 2 task-unique assets and spawn 3 clues. Well, I think in this case it is worth that condition. So we're going to gain a cursed condition for Gloria. So Gloria is going to gain the curse condition. She's only going to be able to have successes on 6s until that is removed. But she is going to gain 3 clues and 2 task-unique assets. Here are the clues. She has 1 for Space 12. It's an ocean space in the South Atlantic. She has 1 for Tunguska and another clue in Sydney. Well, it just so happens that Leo Anderson is in Sydney. We'll place those clue tokens. And she's going to gain the task-unique assets, Purifying the World and Walking the Ley Lines. Those will be her 2 task-unique assets. Next is Tommy Muldoon in Tokyo. And he's going to do a research action, and we'll see if he can pick up that clue. And the research action in the city reads, you tell a young man balancing precariously on a rooftop that he's not dreaming. Test influence -1. Well, Tommy has an influence of 3, so he'll be rolling 2 dice for the test. And he's passed it. He's got a 5. We'll read on. If you pass, he tells you of a magical place he dreamed of as a child gain this clue, and you may discard the top card of the Dream Quest encounter deck. All right. So he's going to gain the clue. Now we have the option now of keeping those and try to use them to solve that ongoing rumor in San Francisco. So we will give that to Tommy Muldoon. Now we have to decide if we want to keep the Dream Quest encounter where it currently is in Unknown Kadith. So we could discard the top card of that deck, and that will move the Dream Quest encounter. I think we'll do that. We'll discard that, and it stays in Unknown Kadith, same location, so it will not move. I believe it's pronounced Kadath. And now we move on to Daisy Walker. She is lost in time and space, and it says here, instead of resolving an encounter, we have to flip the card. And we'll see what she gets. She has replaced by another. In the space between worlds, you encounter a being that can change in shape. The creature seems fascinated with you and asks you countless questions. She's going to test influence -1. All right, her influence is 3, so she'll be rolling 2 dice for the test. Here's the roll. She has a success. We'll continue reading. If you pass, place your investigator token on a space of your choice. All right. Then discard the card. Okay, we can place her on a space of our choice. Well, we have clues in space 19 and a clue in Tunguska. I think I'll place Daisy in space 19. That'll complete our rounds, and we will move on to the Mythos phase, and that will be resolved by Leo Anderson. The cards revealed to be Fruit of Labor. We're going to begin with an Omen track advancement. We'll advance the Omen track to the blue star pattern, and we're going to check the board for gates with blue, for blue gates, and we have one in the underworld. That's in the pyramids. So that's going to advance the Doom track by 1. And the Doom track will move from 12 to 11. Next is going to be a Reckoning. All right, checking our card. To resolve Reckonings, we begin with monsters. Well, there's no monsters on the board. Next is the Ancient One. The Ancient One does have a reckoning effect. It says each investigator moves 1 space towards the nearest space on the Dreamlands sideboard, unless he spends a sanity. Well, I'd like to keep all of the investigators in the spaces that they're on, with the exception of Tommy Muldoon. Tommy would be moving towards San Francisco and towards Arkham. That would be the closest location for him to get to the Dreamlands. So I think we'll spend a sanity for each of the other characters, and Tommy will move to space 2, an ocean space. Next, the Mythos cards will enact, and it says, in the case of this card, each investigator gains a madness condition unless he discards an item or trinket possession. And then we have to discard 1 Eldritch token from the card. Well, rather than take the madness condition, Daisy is going to discard her old journal. That is an item. Leo has no items or trinkets. He will have to take a madness condition. And he's going to gain the amnesia condition. When performing a rest action, he can roll a die. On a 5 or 6, he can discard the card. On a reckoning, he will have to test willpower, and if failed, he will flip the card. Gloria has no item or trinket. She will have to take a madness condition, and she gains a terror. When performing a rest action, you cannot recover sanity. Roll a die. On a 4, 5, or 6, discard the card. On a reckoning, she will test will, and if she fails, she will flip the card. And finally, we have Tommy Muldoon. He has a carbine rifle, but I don't want to have him discard that. He is going to gain a madness condition, and this one is despair. When you perform a rest action, you cannot recover sanity. Flip this card. During reckonings, he will lose the sanity. All right. And now we'll move on to possessions and conditions. Well, Leo just gained that amnesia condition, and it has a reckoning effect. I'm going to have to see if we have to do that in the same turn as which we receive that card. Well, the rules for reckoning state if a monster is spawned or an investigator gains a component while investigators are resolving reckoning effects, they do not resolve the reckoning effect on that monster or component. So I guess we don't have to resolve the amnesia condition. He just received that. Next is Gloria Goldberg. She just received the terror reckoning. So we don't have to resolve that, but she has the Find Gate and the Cursed condition. So we'll try the Cursed condition first. She's going to roll a die, and on a 4, 5, or 6, she can discard the curse. The roll is a 4, so she can discard the curse. That's good. Now she's going to have to resolve this for the Find Gate spell. She has to test lore and flip the card. All right, her lore is a 3. And here's the roll. She rolled 1 success. So we'll flip the card. 1 success is your perception of reality is warping. Loses sanity unless you discard this card. Well, I think she will lose the sanity. She has enough to lose there. That'll move her from 7 down to 6. And finally, we have Tommy Muldoon. He just received this despair this turn during the reckoning effects, so we don't have to worry about that, but he will have to worry about the internal injury. It says he has to test strength, and if he fails, he will have to flip the card. His strength is currently 3. Okay, here is the strength. And he's passed it, so he does not have to flip it. Daisy Walker has no reckoning effects attached to her. Next, we're going to spawn a gate, and that gate we know is going to be in the Amazon. That was face up. So we're going to be placing a gate in the Amazon. So we've got a gate opening in the Amazon, and a zombie comes out. It has a reckoning effect. And that says, during a reckoning effect, spawn the zombie horde epic monster on this space if you discard this monster. If you do discard this monster. All right, well, we know we're going to have a reckoning with the next Mythos card, so there's not much we're going to be able to do about that. No one is in range of that location to even have any chance of getting there. So that is going to turn into an epic monster. There's not much we're going to be able to do about that. And we'll continue on with the Mythos card, and it says, every step of the way, you have never thrown away what could still be used. You have never bought what could be borrowed. And now, your many weeks of discipline are paying off. Others look to your abundant provisions, eager to barter. And it's labeled Fruit of Labor. Event. Each investigator may gain a resource or spend one resource to improve a skill. All right, well, none of us have any resources, so all 4 are going to gain a resource token. Next, we're going to spawn a gate, and we know it's going to be at Arkham, another red gate. So the gate to Arkham opens, and it's going to be guarded by another crazed mob. And that's going to bring the Mythos phase to a close. Now, since Gloria still possesses the Find Gate spell, it says play with the top gate of the gate stack revealed. So we will do that. So we will flip up the top gate, and that's going to be in Celephus, another red gate. Right now we have a total of 2 red gates on the board, and another one for Celephus will be coming up. And unfortunately, when the Omen track moves again, it will be on a red gate, so we're going to be losing levels on the Doom track. So our last decision now is to decide if we want to keep the lead investigator with Leo Anderson or move it to another character. Well, we have 2 Eldritch tokens left on our ongoing rumor in San Francisco. We don't have enough clues. No one has enough clues to solve that at this time. Tommy Muldoon is the only one that has 1 clue. So I think our best bet would be to probably start with Daisy Walker. I'm going to give her the lead investigator token once again. All right, Daisy Walker is our lead investigator. She's currently in Space 19 in Siberia. Space 19 has a clue token, so I think we're going to leave her there for the time being. And I think I'll begin with a focus action. So we're going to give her a focus token, and she has 1 action remaining. I think for her second action, she's going to gain another resource. So she has 2 resources now and 1 focus. Okay, Leo Anderson is up next. He's managed to improve his strength now up to 4, but he does have a detained condition. So it says here, you cannot move or perform actions other than the action on this card. So he's going to have to attempt the local action by testing influence. Okay, so he's going to do an influence test. He has an influence of 2. Here is his roll. And he's failed. All right, so we can't do anything else. We lose our second action. We'll move on to Gloria Goldberg in London. All right, Gloria has a focus and a resource. Her health is at 4 and her sanity is at 6 for the time being. Now she has a madness condition, terror, and we can attempt to get rid of that when we perform a rest action. So I think we might have her end up doing that. So she's going to do a rest action, and because of the ability of Hypnos, we can only recover either a health or sanity. She's currently under a terror condition, so that's going to prevent her from recovering any sanity. So we will attempt to do that action, and we're going to need a 4, 5, or 6 to be successful. Here is her rest action, and we'll attempt to get rid of the terror. She's rolled a 5, so we've done it. Terror condition is gone now. Now she has this Mythos Codex, and as an action she can muster the courage to look upon the secrets of the universe. She's going to be doing a will test. Her will is currently 3. So she'll make her will test and see what happens. She has 1 success, and it says, if you pass, the pages contain knowledge your mind can hardly fathom. Flip the card. Okay, so we'll flip the card and see what we get. And this says, Mythos Codex. All right. And that reads, within the flaking pages of the Singed Codex, you discover the true source of all magic and the mind-shattering implications of what might befall one who delves too deeply. Resolve 1 effect of your choice. You can spend a sanity to improve your lore and then flip the card, or gain a glamour spell, an incantation spell, and a ritual spell, and then discard the card. I think she is going to take the first option, and she's going to spend a sanity to improve her lore. That is great. So we're going to move her sanity down to 5, and we're going to give her a improvement to her lore. That'll put her up to 4 on the lore scale, which is great. And then this card is returned to us, which is awesome. And finally, we have Tommy Muldoon is up next. He has a clue a focus, and a resource. Now he's carrying a couple conditions here. He has a despair and an internal injury. So I think we're going to start out with a rest action for him. He's currently at sea off the coast of San Francisco. So we'll go on with a heal action for Tommy. And he is at full capacity on both health and sanity, so it doesn't matter which variety we choose. And we're going to begin with the despair. And it says, when you perform a rest action, you cannot recover sanity, but flip the card. So we will do that. And that card is revealed to be horrifying knowledge. With all you've seen and heard, how could you possibly go on? Fearing what might await in death, you instead hope that gouging your eyes or giving yourself a lobotomy will end your suffering. He has to test willpower -1. His willpower right now is at 3 because he has a improvement there. So he'd be able to roll 2 dice for this test. And we will do that. We'll have him roll the 2 dice. All right. He has 2 successes. That is awesome. It says, if you pass, discard this card. And that's what we'll do. We will discard the card. Excellent. All right. Also, he has an internal injury. And whoops. I'll just place that up here. And that says, when you perform a rest action, you can roll a die on a 5 or 6, discard the card. So let's try to do that. He's rolled a 3, so he's failed there. He's going to keep the internal injury for the moment. That was his rest action. I think for his next action, he's going to travel, and we'll move him into San Francisco, and that's where that rumor is taking place. We don't have enough clue tokens to address it for the time being, but we'll see what happens. All right, Daisy Walker is up for her encounter. She's in eastern Siberia, and I think she's going to do a research action. We'll try to obtain that clue. Eastern Siberia is a wilderness location, so we'll be reading the wilderness portion. It says, a shadowy figure with a jewel-inlaid scepter visits you in a nightmare. His gaze bores through you, scratching a door to infinity in your chest. You may gain a dark pact condition to gain the clue. If you do not gain the condition, the nightmare shatters, lose a health, and gain an amnesia condition. Well, I think given the circumstances, I normally don't care for taking dark pacts, but I'm going to do it in this case. All right, she's going to gain the clue, but in lieu of that, we're also going to have to take the Dark Pact. And that says during Reckoning, we're going to roll a die on a 1. It's time to fulfill our part of the bargain. So we have a 1 in 6 chance of activating that. But with my dice rolling, it almost always will come up. So she's going to gain the clue token, which is great, and that'll bring her encounter phase to a close. Next up is Leo Anderson. He's in Sydney, and there is a clue token there, so I think he is also going to do a research action, and this time it'll be a city research action. And that reads, your hotel room is filled with smoke and flames. You may spend 2 health to gather your research materials before they burn. If you spend the health, you wake from a dream with charred notes that you did not have before. Gain the clue. Well, he has currently a health of 6, so I think we will do it. I'm going to spend the 2 health, moving him from 6 down to 4. And in turn, that is going to earn him the clue token. Now, since we have that clue token, hopefully we can try to organize these investigators and allow them to transfer these clues to a single character, and then maybe we can take care of that rumor in San Francisco. Next up is Gloria Goldberg. She's in London, and she's attempting to spawn some clues, so let's have her do a London encounter. And the card reads, Professor Patterson died before completing his life's work. His spirit now torments his brother Maurice. His brother will pay you for your travel if you take on this burden. You may gain a haunted condition to gain 2 task-unique assets, then discard 1 and gain 1 ship ticket. Well, I don't think we want to do that necessarily, haunted condition, so I think we will pass on that. And finally, we'll finish up with Tommy Muldoon. He's in San Francisco, and I think he is going to take a San Francisco encounter. And that reads, you visit the Tin Hau Temple and leave an offering for Mazu. We're going to be testing influence. Tommy has an influence of 3. Here's Tommy's influence roll. And he's got 2 successes. And that says if you pass, you are offered a seafood dish that awakens your senses, gain 1 talent condition, and improve observation. Outstanding. So we're going to improve Tommy's observation by 1. That puts it up to 4. And then he's going to gain a random talent. And he gains the talent Attuned. When resolving a spell effect, you may gain +2 lore. If you do, flip this card before taking the test. When you gain this card from the deck, gain 2 spells and then discard 1. All right. Well, his spells include Voice of Ra, a glamour spell, and Dread Curse, an incantation. Now, Tommy's not a very great spellcaster. He's only got a lore of 2, but maybe with the attuned talent, it might help him. All right, we'll shift to the Mythos phase, and Daisy Walker is our lead investigator, and she is going to be resolving this card. And she draws the card, The World Fights Back. We're going to begin with an Omen track advancement, and unfortunately, that is going to advance the Omen to a red symbol. And we have a total of 2 red gates on the board. That's going to move our Doom track down 2. So our Doom track goes from 11 down to 9. Next, we have to resolve Reckoning effects. And we're going to begin with Reckoning effects for monsters. And there is a couple of them. The first is a crazed mob in Arkham. And examining the back of the token, it says we're going to roll a die on a 1 or 2. We will be advancing the Doom by 1. So 1 in 3 chance. And of course it's a 1, so that's going to move the Doom down to 8. The other monster we have is zombies, and during a reckoning it says spawn the zombie horde epic monster in this space. If you do, discard this monster. All right, so we're going to have to replace the zombies with an epic version of the zombie horde. That is also a creature that has a reckoning effect. And unfortunately, that reckoning effect is, we're going to roll a die, and on a 1 or 2, it's going to move the Doom track up. So, and not to mention, this thing's a lot tougher to get rid of. It's got a hit points of 5, and it's a combat -3 with 3 damage. So it's pretty tough to get rid of. And we're not really in a position to have reached those zombies to try to deal with this prior, so there's nothing I could have done. It's just one of those things that can happen in the game. But that's going to be plaguing us for quite a while. All right, now the Ancient Old One. We check for reckoning effects, and he has one. Each investigator moves 1 space towards the nearest space on the Dreamlands sideboard unless he spends a sanity. All right, well, we'll have to calculate these. We'll begin with our first player, Daisy Walker. She's currently in Siberia. The closest location for her Let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4. It looks like it would be Arkham and that gate to the moon. So she would have to move back from Siberia towards Alaska. Or we can spend the sanity. She has a total of 6 sanity right now. I think considering her proximity to the expedition, we will do it. So Daisy Walker is going to spend a sanity, moving her from 6 down to 5, and she'll remain where she is. Leo Anderson, he would have to move to the nearest gate that would get him towards the Dreamlands. So let's see where that would be. The pyramids. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So they're tied. All right, well, if it's tied, we can choose. So I guess I will send him to Indonesia. Next up is Gloria Goldberg. She's currently in London, and she would have to move to Arkham if that was the case. And there is a monster there, crazed mob. Now that crazed mob we can get rid of with an influence test, so I don't necessarily think that that's too bad, and I will do it. I'll have Gloria move from London into Arkham. And finally, Tommy Muldoon. He would have to move towards Arkham. That would be the closest location for him. And I think rather than spending the sanity, I will have him do that. And he'll move to Chicago. All right, that is the Ancient Old One. Next, we go to Mythos cards, and there is one. And we have an active Mythos card that says each investigator gains a madness condition unless he discards an item or trinket possession. Discard 1 Eldritch token from the card. So we're down to 1 Eldritch token on the card. And now each of these guys will have to get rid of an item or trinket or gain a madness condition. Daisy Walker has nothing to give up, so she is going to have to take a madness condition. So Daisy is going to be gaining hallucinations. All right, so we'll give her hallucinations. Leo Anderson doesn't have anything he can give up. He has to take a madness condition as well. And he's going to gain, whoops, that's the top of the card deck. I need to go to the bottom. And that is terror. Okay, so he will gain terror. Gloria Goldberg has nothing she can give up, so she also has to take a madness, and she's getting despair. All right. And then Tommy Muldoon. He has his carbine rifle. I don't want to give that up, so we will have him gain, and it ends up a hallucinations condition. All right. Well, now we move on to possessions and conditions. Daisy just received the hallucinations, so she doesn't have to resolve that. But we do have a dark pact, and we're going to have to roll a die. And on a roll of 1, we're going to have to resolve that dark pact. And I can almost guarantee you I'm going to be rolling a 1. Here's the roll. Well, we rolled a 6. Okay, so I got lucky there. All right, Leo Anderson just gained the terror condition, so he doesn't need to resolve the reckoning for that, but he had an amnesia condition. He's going to have to test his willpower. And if he fails, he'll have to flip the card. He has a willpower of 3. So we'll have him do a will check of 3. Okay. And he has a success, so he's good for the moment. All right, Gloria Goldberg just received the despair condition, so she doesn't have to resolve that this turn. She does have a find gate spell, and during reckoning she has to test lore. Her lore now is at 4. So we'll get her 4 dice and see what happens. Okay, we'll have her test lore. She has no successes, so we got to flip the card and see what 0 successes gives us. It says, the stars are right. If the top gate in the gate stack corresponds to the current omen, advance doom by 1 unless you discard this card. Well, the current gate stack does correspond. So we would have to discard the Find Gate spell to prevent that. Now the Find Gate spell is keeping our deck face up for the moment, so it's a lot to give up. Our doom track is down to 8 already, and I think I am going to surrender the Find Gate spell. We'll get rid of that, and we'll leave the doom where it is. I'm going to have to flip that gate stack back to unknown, so the next gate is going to be Celephus, and we'll put that upside down back to unknown. And finally, we've got Tommy Muldoon. He just received the hallucinations during this phase, so we don't have to worry about that. But we will have to worry about the internal injury and the Voice of Ra card. Okay, he has to test lore and flip the card for the Voice of Ra, so we will do that. His lore is 2. Now he's attuned. When resolving a spell effect, you may gain +2 lore. If you do, flip this card before resolving the test. Well, I suppose he will do it. So he's going to get +2 to lore. That'll give him a total of 4, and we'll have to flip the card. So we will flip that, and it is each 6 you roll resolving the lore test counts as 2. After resolving the test, resolve the effect based on your test result. Okay, so we're going to roll 4 dice. He has 1 5, so we have 1 success, and we will resolve the Voice of Ra. It says test lore and flip the card. 1 success. The voice tells you terrible secrets, lose a sanity. So he'll have to lose a sanity. He's down to 4. And then we have to apply the 1 success to attuned. Your reality is shattered. Gain a madness condition unless you discard this card. I don't want to gain any more of those. We will lose the attuned condition instead. All right. All right, that completes the reckoning. Now we have to spawn a gate, and that is going to be in Celephus on the sideboard. So the gate opens in Celephus, and a star vampire comes out. It has a special condition on there when it spawns on the board, and that says, when this monster is spawned, advance the omen by 1, unless investigators as a group spend 2 clues. Well, I'm not going to spend the clues, so we will advance it by 1, and that's going to go from red to the blue star pattern. All right. Now we'll get to the event, and that's the world fights back. Across the globe, headlines announce terrors that threaten to engulf humanity. Individuals everywhere take action against the horrors and assist those who have already been fighting the Ancient One. Each investigator may do one of the following: recover 2 health, recover 2 sanity, or discard 1 monster from his space. All right, that's actually pretty good. We'll start out with Daisy Walker. She's going to take 2 health back. That will move her from sanity. That'll move her from 5 sanity back to 7. So that's great. Leo Anderson is going to regain 2 health. That'll move him from 4 back up to 6. So he's at full power again on his health. Gloria Goldberg is in Arkham, and she's going to use the opportunity to get rid of this crazed mob. And we will just simply get rid of that token. And finally, Tommy Muldoon. He is currently at 7 health and 4 sanity. So I guess he will recover the 1 sanity that he has lost. That'll move him up to 5, so we will do that. And that's going to bring the round to a close, and I think we are going to end the video here. And I'm going to resume with episode 2 in another video. So far, the Doom track has moved from its starting point at 12 down to 8. And we've got some problems on the board, there's no doubt about it. I've got that zombie horde out there, which is during reckoning effects on rolls of 1 and 2 are going to be moving the Doom down. And then we've also got an active ongoing rumor in San Francisco. We don't have the ability to solve it. We need 4 clues, and I've only got 2 clues between, or 3 clues between our 4 investigators, so we don't have enough to do it. On the sideboard, we've got a red and a blue gate open. We also have 2 red gates open on the main board, so we've got 3 red open, and we've got to get rid of those. At this rate, we're not going to last very long unless we can dispose of those red gates. Now, fortunately, we are currently on a blue star pattern just before the green comet, so we've got some time before those red gates will activate, but we're going to have to do something about that. We're also carrying quite a few conditions, and we need to try to deal with those as soon as possible. So thanks for watching, and I hope you're enjoying this playthrough of Eldritch Horror against Hypnos. I look forward to seeing you again on the channel for episode 2 coming shortly. And in the meantime, this is Keith from the Solo Gamers Club, wishing everyone a pleasant evening and a good night.